Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, a place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you a ministry advantage that empowers the church and home.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough, and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
Well, I am so excited to be back this week, and we have a very familiar voice to the podcast, and it's our friend, Christina Embree, and I think she's just such a neat woman. I love her writing. I love her perspective. But one personal note about her that she did not mention in the interview, but I know this about her, is she has the hobby of making charcuterie boards.
Hold it. This is a Christian podcast, Marianne.
Charcuterie.
So seriously, the first time I heard that word, I had to do a double take. I'd never heard that word before about a year ago. I must confess, it was new to me. I'm like, what did you say?
Charcuterie.
I'm probably the only person out there, but please explain to everybody what that is. Please, Ms.
The charcuterie board is this board that has, usually in different restaurants, farm to fork type restaurants, there's, local honeys, local farm to fork cheeses, meats, fruits. It is just this plethora banqueting table, just full of food, cold cuts and pepperoni and olives and fruit and the meats. The cold cuts are
we lost our entire audience. They've gone to go snack now. They're going.
I know. They're drooling. And so if you don't know what a charcuterie is, you need to Google it and see the beautiful things that these people come up with. And Christina builds these incredible charcuterie boards. And so we thought Ron and I we wanted to have some fun and just talk about what are some of your favorite food items on a charcuterie board?
Oh, yes. For me, almost any cheese other than Swiss. I'm not a Swiss person.
Okay.
So any cheese for me, and then any flatbread style cracker.
Okay.
What about you?
Okay. I love Gouda. Smoked Gouda. I'm a big Gouda girl. Mm-hmm. And there is another cheese. I don't know if you're familiar with Trader Joe's, but they have something called unexpected cheddar.
Ooh.
And so run out there to your local Trader Joe's and grab some unexpected cheddar and let me know what you think. It's really different. I don't even know how to describe it. I love cheeses too. I'm definitely a cheesehead. Yeah. I absolutely love honey drizzled pepperonis. And prosciutto. Am I saying that right?
Yes,
prosciutto.
I'm with you. Any type of, it's almost like a ham that's got a little kick to it.
Like it's a bacon.
Yes, that's right.
What's a word we can make up for ham and bacon? Like, I don't know.
I'm sure there's a British friend out there that's screaming the word at their device right now going, if you only knew. But prosciutto is good too. In fact, my wife and I were just watching a cooking show and they were rendering prosciutto because it has some fat in it, like you're saying, with the bacon. And, yes.
I'm all about it. And
I'm also a brie fan, but I've learned with brie, it really needs to assume room temperature before eating.
I think so too. I think that's why I don't love it.
Yeah. And then you've got to determine whether or not you can put it back in the refrigerator after it's assumed room temperature. That's what war wages in my OCD head of mine.
That's so funny. It's so funny. Now, I love it.
It is. Our team at D6 did this last year at the holidays, and it was the most spectacular event. We gathered. We had a good time. It's just one of those little bit different. And so if you've not done that, do that for your family, and let every family member pick an item for this board. I'm not going to say the word.
Charcuterie board.
It's right. That's right. So new vocabulary for me. Christina,
Yes.
I'm going to have to see one of those boards. You're going to have to, I know you're listening, so you're going to have to shoot us some pictures of all these different boards. I want to see those
Remarkable.
in there. But, let me also echo what you said about Christina. Christina's a friend of D6 and has been for a long time. And she mentions in the interview that she's kind of taken a break due to her grad school studies. And by the way, she's doing some great work, great research. Highly recommend reading her work. Christina represents one of the family ministry models that I think our audiences need to be aware of. I've been talking with another professor at another seminary, and they teach 6 different models. I teach 4. The people I know teach 4 mostly, and so I'm actually expecting the syllabus to this other seminary's work so I can study the other 2. But we would typically divide family ministry into 4 models until I stretch my thinking here. One is the D6 model, and I want to kind of demonstrate this for what I think all of us know. It's where the church and home work together through, and get this is the key, recognizing that we have siloed our church to where there's little generational overlap. Mm-hmm. But D6 would typically, the D6 model would champion a strong youth, a strong children's ministry, strong age-specific ministries that intentionally overlap in complementary areas like mission trips and activities and taking those tools home. Christina, Rob Reno, some other great friends of D6 that we've invited in numerous times and will continue to do so, represents an integrated model. It actually is built on the same foundation of Deuteronomy 6. It recognizes the same problem of lack of discipleship and the siloing of the church to where the ages have no overlap. And the integrated model would say, you know what, it's probably better that we study together in life group and Sunday school, and that we worship together and we do all activities together. And that would distinguish them from D6. So again, same foundation, slightly different application. There's 2 other models out there. I will not explain them, but I'll tell you what they are. They're the milestones model, which you look for and recognize key points in a child's development years until they reach adulthood. And the other one is the adoptive model. And this is key because not everybody has a spiritual or physically present father or mother. And so the community of adults have to lean into the teens and kids and be intentional with mentoring and coaching them. But let's get back to integrated versus D6. I want you to know we live comfortably together. In fact, as I teach these models, I often pause after we get through. We spend a week on every one of these, and I ask our students, which one's best? Which one should you pick is what I say. And I let them go and I let them discuss. And at the end, I actually have a presentation where I show how all 4 work extremely well together. And I believe for too long, we have separated out our ages. And if I had several lives to live, and this is so theologically incorrect, but if I had several lives to live, I'd love to alternate one as an integrated minister, one as a D6 minister, and do this several times and just make some comparisons there because they both have their strengths, both have their weaknesses in where we go. But I'm so thankful that Christina, in her works, she's challenging these silos that we have built up to where it seems like youth ministry can function almost like a separate church without any overlap with the adults or senior adults or any of the others. And if you're doing that, while we would champion age-specific ministry, siloing to that extreme is just not healthy in any way, shape, or form. And I'm so thankful Christina's championing this. I'm sorry I went off on a professor bent there. I wanted people to recognize that and recognize the complementary ways these models do work together. So with that, why don't we jump into Christina's talk, listen to her wisdom, and on the other side of this, Marianne and I will analyze it and share with you the takeaways that you need in your ministry.
Registration for D6 2023 is now open. For a limited time, you can take advantage of the absolute best pricing for the D6 conference if you register now. The earlier you register, the more you save. Last year's conference sold out, so don't wait long to take advantage of this offer. Join us for the 2023 D6 Conference, April 10th to 12th at the Marriott World Center in Orlando, Florida. This year's theme is All In, all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. Register now at d6conference.com.
We are live at the D6 Conference, and I am joined today by Miss Christina Embree. Christina serves as the Minister of Generational Discipleship with the Great Lakes Conference of the Brethren in Christ. She and her husband, Luke, planted the Plowshares Brethren in Christ Church, and she is mom to 3 wonderful kids. With years of experience in family ministry and children's ministry, she's passionate about seeing churches partnering with families to encourage faith formation at home and equipping parents to disciple their kids. Christina, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be back at D6. It's been 5 years since I was able to be here because of church planning, and I'm really glad to be here.
Well, welcome back. We're glad to have you. And we're glad to have you speaking on this topic. We're talking about recovering from COVID and the church recovering in a post-COVID way. So people had to scramble in 2020 to figure out how to continue to be the church without being in a building, which I think was probably a big challenge for some because they think of church as a building instead of us being the church. There were a lot of adaptations in that time. What do we do with kids ministry? What do we do with nursery? How do we still congregate? And there are some who are still making that transition back, but we all had to make those adaptations. And a lot of that included our kids being in worship with their families. What did that do for families when kids were in the worship service, corporately worshiping with their families?
Yeah. So in 2020, I run a nonprofit called Refocus Ministry, where we actually work with churches to help them connect the generations within their church. And one of the first things we tell churches is if you want to start having kids in worship, don't just throw them into worship. It takes time because we're used to them not being there to create space and build relationships and create a welcoming environment for them to be in the service. Well, 2020 said, no, we're just going to throw them in. And so 2020 and 2021, we were getting a lot of emails and phone calls. And you know, one thing about relationships is you can't program them. Relationships take time to establish, and you can't just throw a cookie-cutter program or curriculum at it and hope that it works. So we really had to take the conversation back to relationships and say, okay, you're in this situation. We have to work backwards. What can we do in your churches to build relationships, to let families know that they are welcome in the space, to let older people connect with new parents and young parents in a way that is helpful, to create resources that actually enhance the opportunity for people to know one another, know each other's names, and build relationships. And a lot of that is not going to happen in the church building. So we got really creative about how we could help churches do things outside of the church building. Things like, well, if your kid's still playing sports, why don't you invite the church to come and sit in the stands and cheer them on? If you have a child that is in ballet, why not invite the congregation to come and see them perform, even if it has to be over Zoom? Start building those relationships outside of the building so that when we see each other in the building, it's not awkward or uncomfortable because we have something that we've shared with one another. And so that's one of the first steps that we would typically do with a church, is start building those relationships. And so we just had to work backwards from that and say, okay, they're already there, but we still need to get those relationships in place.
So what kind of adjustments then are churches making to get back to, quote, normal, whatever that might be?
Yeah, well, one of the most exciting things to me anyways is that there's a I hate using the term new normal, but the normal is starting to look more like what I would say normal was before 1950s, before we introduced the more age-sensitive type spaces, where we are seeing congregations doing more things in multi-generational and intergenerational ways. And we're seeing it outside of the church building, things like service and mission, where all ages are invited to come. And one of my favorite things is actually from Tony Souder and the PrayForMeCampaign.com, where we're seeing churches who are connecting across generations through prayer. And so for me, it's very exciting to see that there seems to be a movement to more and more spaces where generations get to be together. My doctoral research is all about age segregation and how we do keep the generations apart through different constructs and social norms in society. And the church should be a place that we can overcome those things and come together as the body of Christ. And so that's exciting to me.
What are some of the benefits that we saw come out of everybody being together, like as the church?
Oh, yes. Many. Well, one thing we heard over and over again during 2020 is how we were lonely and cut off and we wanted to be together. And what was interesting is when we were back together, how many churches were like, no, we all want to be together. Like, we want to hear little children's voices. Yeah. They're not distracting. They bring us joy. We want to see the teenagers in their crazy outfits because we remember when we were teenagers in crazy outfits. And so this idea of doing more things together, I think, was one major benefit. But if we want to look at just generational, intergenerational relationships as a whole, there are benefits that are mental, physical, social, emotional. Sociologists and scientists have studied this, and there's just so many benefits from us being with people of different ages on ourselves, and from older people experiencing longer lives and actually better memory and having opportunities to be more physically active, and younger people learning how to be in society and having some social cues that they wouldn't have otherwise learned. There's just benefits for all of us. So even if COVID didn't bring it on, and even if that hadn't happened, the benefits exist. And now churches are seeing that. At least the churches that we're working with are excited to see that and looking to do it more, not less, which is very exciting.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. We're going to be right back after this quick break.
Are you concerned about your church's future? Will it serve another generation? The Bible says He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and yet we often only know how to connect to Abraham. Let D6 help you connect with each generation. Your kids and grandkids are counting on you. D6 comes from the principles of Deuteronomy 6 and helps what happens in church also happen at home. Curriculum you can trust. Discipleship that connects.
We are talking about generations getting to worship together. And I think if I could make an assumption, it's important that the leadership of the church be on board with continuing that platform. But how do you, as let's say you're a lead pastor or a worship leader, someone who has something to do with the actual corporate worship, having these intergenerations there, how do you make that a comfortable place for everyone, where a baby crying is not everyone turning a shoulder and getting angry that they're interrupting, but also engaging for the first grader on the front row or the 85-year-old that's on the back row? How can you have one service where everyone feels comfortable being there together?
That's a really good question, and the answer is you can't. Right. I mean, it's absolutely impossible for a number of reasons. One, because our entire society is set up in very age-segregated ways. Yeah. We are very used to our whole mentality and our physical being and our emotional being are very used to being put into spaces where we feel comfortable. And we tend to stay in spaces that are targeted for us, for our age, and for our life experience, and for people who look and sound and are at the same space in life as we are.
Right.
And so it is going to be uncomfortable comfortable whenever we're in a space, there's going to be some part of it that's uncomfortable. And I happen to think that fits in well with our calling as believers living in this world. I don't know that we're supposed to feel comfortable here. I do think that there needs to be some stretching. And that's part of why extending grace is such an important part of being a believer. But what we can do is find ways to say all are welcome. And there's a difference between all are comfortable and all are welcome here.
That's right, yeah.
And so when we walk into a space and we look around immediately at the architecture and how it's decorated, and we know whether we're allowed to be in that space or not. When a child walks into a sanctuary and sees only pews and flowers and glass things and adult things, it's very clear to them, this isn't really a space that I'm supposed to be in. But if they see that there are some coloring tablets that are out for them, if they see a bag of activities that are quiet activities they can do in the pew, if they see that there are praise sticks that they can wave in the air with like flags on them during the worship time, if they see a playground or a small play area that's got soft toys in it for little people, they can say, oh, they do expect me here. And then same with senior adults. If they see that they're seating for where they can put their canes, or if they have to be on a wheelchair, that there's space for them to get to those places. If there's communion that is able to be taken by them, they may not be able to take communion that's harder, like some of our communion wafers can be, that there's something for them. They know that they're expected in that space. So there's a difference between welcoming everyone and making everyone comfortable. And sometimes we need to be a little bit uncomfortable so we can love well.
Well, I was going to ask you for how we make it a comfortable place, and you just gave us some very practical tips, and I'm going to go home and do some of those things and have those things ready for the tiny disciples that are walking in there. How important is intergenerational discipleship in the church, and for someone that we're trying to raise, the different generations speaking truth to that child?
Right. Well, more and more we are finding the research tells us that it is of extreme importance. Even here at D6, we got to hear about the new Barna research that tells us that having a relationship with a warm and nurturing adult is one of the number one indicators of whether a person will stay in the faith as they grow. And the reality is that according to the research, only 2 out of 5 students or children who are in children's ministry do have a relationship with a warm and nurturing adult that's not their parent in the church. And I even go as far as to say not even a volunteer in that ministry, because for a kid, they don't understand that person's volunteering their time. They think, oh, it's their job. They have to love me. They have to be my friend. But if someone who is not in the classroom, who is not an official volunteer, takes the time to get to know them and ask them how they're doing and check in on them throughout the weeks and months, they know that they are genuinely loved just for who they are. And it works the other way too. When an older person has a younger person come up to them and say, tell me your stories, tell me about what it was like growing up. I mean, research has been recently done where they put a bunch of college students in a room with a bunch of senior citizens, and all they did was ask them to talk, and they talked for 45 minutes and they taped the conversation. On average, those senior citizens gave 4 life lessons in 45 minutes.
Whoa.
Now imagine doing that in the church.
Yeah.
What if we took our young people and our oldest generations and we put them in a room and said, just talk, we're going to give you a meal, just talk for the next 45 minutes. And consider 4 life lessons being given to those students from believers who love Jesus. I just think that it's just myriads beyond what we can do. And so when we talk about our faith, the scriptures are very clear. It's from one generation to another. And so I think that it is absolutely necessary that we have spaces where generational discipleship can flourish because of relationships that we've established across generations.
Now, earlier you were talking about how typically we're most comfortable around people who are our age, the same, like us, you know, things of that nature. There is a time and a place for that.
Yes.
There's a time and a place for a kid's class, for an adult's class, for teenagers. There's a time and a place for that. But what I hear you saying is we need to create the atmosphere where they will all be together and have that opportunity. Is that correct?
Yes, and expand what we consider worship. Worship isn't just singing. Worship is when we come together with the intention of honoring and glorifying God. That can be a meal. That can be a Bible study. That can be a service project or a mission field. Whatever we're doing that is to the Lord, that is a time of worship. So when we say intergenerational worship, it doesn't have to be Sunday morning at 10.
Yeah.
It should be how our community is living out our faith towards God in honor and glory. And you said there's nothing bad about no, absolutely not. Like it's a both and, not an either or. It just happens to be that the way society is structured and most traditional churches are structured, we emphasize the age-specific ministries and we emphasize the life experience coming together. And I really think it's important, especially post-COVID, to create those spaces that say, no, everyone is welcome here. We're going to know each other's names. We're going to develop relationships for the purpose of generational discipleship and ensuring that our faith gets passed from one generation to another.
So I think it's important that church leaders lean into this conversation and make sure that they are providing that opportunity for everyone to feel comfortable, but also for those generations to touch shoulders.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important that we mention to parents who are listening, don't be afraid of those moments. You and your kids need those moments where you're rubbing shoulders with a different generation than you. Don't feel like, oh, well, if I bring the kids, then it will, like my kids walk in the church and they're just running like crazy people. They are crazy people, but at the same time, sometimes I feel like that's a nuisance.
Right.
When actually that's an opportunity.
Right.
And so I think we need to make sure that we say to parents, your kids might be crazy, bring them. We want them there.
Yes.
We need them there rubbing shoulders with the generations before them.
And from the front of the church, our leadership should be saying to the other members of the congregation, we want children here. We want our youth here. We're excited to see them. Please give a smile to their parents. Encourage them as they are raising kids. You've done it. They're in the process of doing it.
Right.
Get to know their kids. Be those pew grandparents if you want to help out. And just make sure that we are excited to know that our church is growing from the ground up and we are raising the next generation of believers.
That's right. Well, Christina, thank you so much for being with us and sharing these insights with us today.
Thank you so much for letting me be here. I was excited to come, and I'm really grateful to be a part of this.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, I just love Christina Embree's perspective. There's two really strong points that I'm left challenged with. The first one is you can't program relationships. I mean, I don't know. That just hit me differently this time. You can't program relationships, and we've got to create an atmosphere for connection, specifically in becoming more intergenerational. And she gave some really great practical intergenerational ways to connect different ages and stages to where they're operating together and connecting. There's such value in that.
If you're sitting in a staff meeting, or maybe you're just in your team with all your youth volunteers, one vital question to ask, and you heard it from Christina, if this activity we're planning coming up, how can we invite more generations to be a part?
Love that.
How can we invite mom and dad in? You've got to ask those kinds of questions. Did you catch her terminology? We need to touch shoulders or rub shoulders with multiple generations. I love that.
Me too. I'm better. I think there has been great value in my own life when I'm listening to my Gen Alpha child and his friends and hearing them communicate to each other. When I'm listening to my Gen Z child and his friends in my house, when they're throwing marshmallows at each other and having teenager conversations, it's valuable for me to listen to my millennial friends and what God's showing them and how they're seeing the world through their lens and their perspective. It's valuable for me to listen to my boomer mom.
Yes.
And she's a boomer, and all of her friends, and, hearing the perspective of a boomer, and then beyond the boomer. It's just, I think there's great value in listening and gleaning wisdom from any and all. That's one of the things I do love about my mom. She loves to study. She's in her 70s, and she loves to study and listen to my boys and what God's teaching them and how God is raising them up, because it's so different than the way she was raised spiritually.
That's right. Now, for all of our listeners, and the common consistency of teaching on the different age groups out there. Once again, Gen Xers were left out and overlooked.
Because I am one. Because I am one.
I love it. I love it. So, here's the deal for real. We need to figure out more ways that the wisdom of what Marianne has just talked about can be part of our discipleship.
That's right.
We need men together with men of different age groups. While your life groups or Sunday schools might be similar in age, when you get into D groups, man, having an older guy there, that can just be wisdom, especially if they're just being really real with you about mistakes they've made along the way and not pretending to be perfect. The vulnerability among multiple generations can be the most powerful discussion starter we can have. I think that would be true of male or female. There. Please, I would ask you to consider how to cross generations in most of your activities.
Yeah. I think it's, I'm thinking professionally, I play a role with D6 Family, and we have a team on our marketing team, and multi-generations are represented on that team. Right. And in fact, your daughter, she speaks into some things and plays a huge part in different projects that we work on and think about for ministry leaders. And I'm going to tell you something. She's significantly younger than me, and I value her perspective visually. She sees things differently. I completely miss things. And she brings words and perspective and color and visual creativity that I just don't value. And some of it's because of my age. And I've got to be sensitive to, if I'm going to reach, if I want to reach a broad audience and a broad perspective with the gospel, with biblical truth, I've got to be sensitive to how they see the world. And so I'm so thankful for her and just her perspective. And I'm thankful that she represents a completely different age range. And that brings such insight to my life, such insight to my life.
And vice versa. She's just bragged on her, but I also know that my daughter works, just to be clear, we have a nepotism rule inside of our organization, but she is a separate contractor giving about 10 hours a week doing social marketing. And one of the things I love is that she gets mentored by people like Marianne and by Lena Wooten. That's just so powerful. That's the generations working hand in hand the way Christina is talking about, and it can go a lot further. And I just love my brothers and sisters who get that part right. And those who don't have overlap, we're really, really cheating each other. And by the way, that doesn't just happen with adults. Having teens come in and volunteer in your children's ministry. I'm not saying every week so that they miss their own opportunity to be in class, but have a rotation volunteer system. Have them come down, have them own that, have them help teach. Those make differences of, the way I said it at the conference recently was, we want our teens to belong, not attend church.
That's right.
And the more we can get that age overlap, the more they're going to feel belonging in there. Right. So, well, thank you, Miss Christina, for this incredible contribution you're making, especially in your writing, in your research, in your ministry, and in those charcuterie boards. Can't wait to see those and hear more about your making. As a woodworker, I'm actually intrigued by that. And want to hear more. That will be my next conversation with Christina when I see her.
Oh, I want you to make us charcuterie boards. The boards.
Yeah.
You can make the board.
I could. Yes, absolutely.
The bread boards?
Yep.
Okay, sorry guys. I just had a crazy awesome idea.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So and in fact, that's what I thought you were referring to, Christina making.
No, but she puts the food on top.
I see. Okay.
Yes.
Well, now I have less interest in talking to her. No, being a woodworker, I was thinking the other way. That's one of those great paradigm shifts that I was assuming one thing and Marianne was saying the other. I wish you could see our faces right now. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you that next week we're going to be talking to Kurt and Olivia Bruner, tag team here, incredible couple, and they're going to be discussing technology because they were one of the first and early writers in this field. And Kurt's incredible legacy, having worked with Focus on the Family, ministering in the local church and other areas, he's quite a thought leader. And he and Olivia is going to do an incredible job challenging us in the areas of technology. We'll see you then. And until then, grab some meat or cheese off of that board. Look for ways to connect with your kids around that table, and be very, very intentional with looking for ways to overlap generations in your church ministry, and especially at home. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.